Let's go crazy, you fuckers! I love you all! There's only one frontman that can say both of those things back to back on a live concert. It's freaking OZZY! So there you go. The man is the official crazy madman of heavy metal. And after Black Sabbath, he has released, I think, something close to 11 or 12 studio albums. Now, as for the newer stuff, anything after No More Tears, I would say falls on C tier or D tier. So the worst stuff, worst OZZY stuff in my opinion, would be some of the newer ones. I kind of like some songs on Scream, so I think actually, weirdly enough, that might be pretty much at the top of C tier. But then I really haven't listened to Patient Number 9 or any of those that much. I have heard Osmosis and don't really care for it. I think it might be one of the worst ones. Black Rain didn't really excite me. So I would place all the new stuff probably somewhere in C tier or D tier, and that would be the worst stuff OZZY has released. But we're concentrating on the first 6. And here is this collection DVD with different performances and interviews and stuff like that. I'm guessing this isn't the official version. I'm guessing this might be like some. I'm not quite sure. It kind of looks half official and half not. So tough to say. It kind of wears me out that there's like this sticker kind of thing here, but it's actually printed on the cover of this DVD. So I feel this probably isn't official, but there you go. So let's make this. Let's check out the first 6 OZZY albums. Here's Blizzard of Oz, 1980. He had just left Black Sabbath. And it was a difficult time, but he managed to find this guitar player, Randy Rhoads, and things really worked out really well. People say this is a classic album. I agree, it's really fun listening to it. The songs don't feel that long, it's kind of catchy, it's kind of easy to approach. If you're already listening to Black Sabbath and it's kind of heavy sometimes and kind of epic and proggy, this is much more straightforward 80s fun, enjoyable rock music. There's this, I guess, Eddie Van Halen influence somewhat on the style that Randy Rhoads plays. It kind of has this similar fun factor about it, let's say it like that. This expanded edition has You Looking at Me, Looking at You, which is a really cool B-side song. I think it's better than No Bone Movies on the original album, so I would have probably placed it here on the album instead of a single B-side. I really like the opening track, I Don't Know. Crazy Train is a big hit single, I still like it to this day. Revelation, Mother Earth is a really epic song, and then Steal Away the Night is a fun closing track. So I like especially the way this album begins and the way it ends. And there in the middle there's Suicide Solution and Mr. Crowley. And I don't know, those are like okay songs, but not quite my favorite. So it's really difficult. Is this quite legendary? Well, it just has to be legendary because everyone's saying it. But there's one album that I like even better than that one, and that's his second one, Diary of a Madman. It's a bit heavier, it's a bit darker and mythological and weird. There's songs here like Believer, which are kind of creepy and crawling over the mountain. Flying High Again is kind of like Crazy Train Part 2, but You Can't Kill Rock and Roll is amazing. The closing track, Diary of a Madman, is simply heartbreaking, especially as it was the final track that we got from Mr. Randy Rhoads before he passed on that airplane accident. So I really like every single song here, even the one what's on the B side. Let's see, Tonight, yeah. I even like that song, even though it's kind of a sappy ballad. SATO is great, and I even like Little Dolls. Funnily enough, in 1981, when OZZY released this song Little Dolls, and it's basically about voodoo, about pushing these pins in these little dolls. That same year, Black Sabbath also released a song on that same kind of a weird topic called Voodoo, and Dio sings that. So that's kind of a weird coincidence. Both of these Black Sabbath front singers releasing a track with their respective bands about the same topic, and I can't really remember hearing many voodoo songs in general, so that's kind of an odd one, an anomaly, I guess. There's a bonus disc here live, and it's a pretty cool one, so this is pretty much the full package for me. Definitely the greatest OZZY studio package that I have ever seen. They did release some of these Randy Rhoads live shows back in the 80s with this title called Ozzy Osbourne Randy Rhoads Tribute. And it's a really cool one, and the track list is pretty much the same. It's really heavily based on the first album, but there are a couple of tracks from the second one as well, so that's pretty cool. And it's kind of slick. I think it's slightly overproduced. It should be a bit rougher. It will sound a bit better, but then again, that's the 80s style, and you know, I get it. They were devastated when Randy Rhoads died, so it's nice to have these tapes here, but for me, this kind of makes it somewhat redundant. There are a couple of tracks here that you can't find on other live shows. I think No Bone Movies was from the first tour, actually, taken here, and maybe even Goodbye to Romance. So there you go. But definitely cool stuff. You can't go wrong with OZZY and Randy Rhoads stuff. It's always really cool. So after Randy Rhoads passed on, they continued the tour and released this DVD called Speak of the Devil. Unfortunately, Randy Rhoads isn't here, but Brad Gillis is stealing the show. Brad Gillis from Night Ranger, I think he's from that band. Really, really great player. I cannot understand how he learned the songs so quickly and played them so well. A really amazing show from the early 80s with OZZY. And actually, I also, as I have that huge box set from these first two albums, here's the DVD portion from that. So if you want to see some Randy Rhoads stuff, I can also check that out. I like to keep it here because it's from that same tour, roughly at very least. There's some stuff from the first tour as well. So this is really cool, absolutely. You know, if you only get one live DVD, get this one, but get the right version, because there are other versions here. Here's the Japanese one, and it's edited weirdly. There's like this second bits and pieces missing from here and there. Here, the sound quality and the picture quality is also much better, so definitely get this version here. Forget the other cheaper versions of the Speak of the Devil show. He also released a CD or an LP, cassette, whatever you have, an album called Speak of the Devil or Talk of the Devil in the British Isles, I think it's called. But it's a very different thing. I don't think Brad Gillis. Actually, he might be playing there. I don't remember. Quite sure. But he's playing Black Sabbath songs there. So it's a very different case from this DVD. So it's kind of weird why they have the same titles. You would expect that to be pretty much the same thing, but just, you know, on an album. So here's the DVD version, and then there's the album version. But it gets even weirder than that, because here's the DVD, and if you get the Japanese version, you do get an extra CD where you have the show. It's here underneath the booklet. So it's even weirder than that. So there's kind of like two different OZZY Speak of the Devil CDs because of this one floating around. Still, forget that. Just get this version. This is the best version. Best sound quality, best picture. So, life has to go on. What OZZY does next is 1983. With Jake E. Lee, he releases Bark at the Moon, and everyone has heard the opening track probably a million times, and it's a really cool one, absolutely. I like the second track, You're No Different, quite a lot as well. Center of Eternity was kind of a big deal. Waiting for Darkness is a really cool one. I even like the track called Spiders, which is really creepy and crawly as it should be. So yeah, it's a bit moodier album, I would say. It's not quite as rocking all the time. And there are some real ballads here, like So Tired, which sounds really just, it sounds like the Beatles, really, to be honest. I wouldn't say this is a legendary album. I wouldn't say this is even great. I guess I would put this, well, maybe at the bottom of great tier or at the top of good tier, B tier. Let's say it's good enough to be great. Yeah. Just about good enough to be great. And he did release a VHS, which nowadays is a DVD. He is Bark at the Moon, which is really aptly titled. It's a pretty cool one. The opening picture, I think, is a different one. It's from a different tour, and he's older here. But really, this show is from that tour in 1983, I think. 1984. Salt Palace, Salt Lake City, Utah. And you got pretty much all the classic songs here, plus a couple of really cool tracks from Bark at the Moon. So you get Rock and Roll Rebel, Bark at the Moon, Center of Eternity. So it's a cool one, and you know the band is rocking pretty nicely, and definitely worth checking out if you like your OZZY stuff. Here's his fourth album, the one he kind of wants to forget. I think that's kind of harsh. I actually like the songs better here than on Bark at the Moon, but the production is pretty hideous. It's the glam era of OZZY. So the reason why he doesn't want us to remember him quite like this with all the glittery clothes and that, I can appreciate that. He sounds like on some of these pictures with this haircut, he kind of looks like an old grandmother. And he was pretty much out of his mind on drugs and booze and all that. So maybe he doesn't even remember this album that well. But for me, the songs really shine here. I really like many of the songs. I wish the production was a bit heavier. It's a bit slick 80s production. The cover artwork looks like it's the heaviest OZZY album ever, with nuclear bombs and bat monsters and whatever, which is kind of silly because it doesn't feel that heavy really. And it's kind of a sad sounding album as well. It's very emotional album. Well, with OZZY singing, of course, that kind of is self-evident anyway. I really like songs like The Ultimate Sin and Secret Loser. But also Killer of Giants. I think it's a really epic and sad song. An anti-war song, so kind of one of those things where you hear so many of those in the 80s, but it's got beautiful melodies in it. Shot in the Dark is it's the big hit single from this one, and it kind of sounds really sad and depressing as well. I would say it's definitely a cool album. Check it out. I think it's great. I wouldn't say it's legendary, but it's great. I think it's better than Bark at the Moon. Song-wise, not necessarily sound-wise. Did they release a VHS from this tour? Hell yeah. The Ultimate OZZY. I think this is from 1986 or 1987. And they really play a lot of songs from this album, so that helps. Probably seeing this helps you to get those songs, even though the band looks really ridiculous and stupid with all the glitter and grandma jackets and all that. But you know, it's the songs that matter. The one stupid thing with this one is they have placed the studio videos from some of these tracks here. There's this ongoing theme here, and it's kind of kitschy, and they tried to do something new with this video, and it hasn't aged all that well. But once they get to actually playing the songs live, I think there's a lot of great stuff here. Shot in the Dark is really more like a music video. The Ultimate Sin is the actual music video. I think, yeah, Thank God for the Bomb, or was it Lightning Strikes? Might be Lightning Strikes. It's also here in the middle of the set, but it's also a music video. So that's kind of stupid, but there you go. But the rest of the stuff is actually played live. There's some pretty cool drum solos here with funny shenanigans happening. So it's a really entertaining package. Not the most seriously taken from OZZY, but a fun one, definitely. And here's also, I guess this is a bootleg. I got this from a record store in Japan. Kansas City 1986. And I think these ones are more or less actually live. So you get Ultimate Sin here and Shot in the Dark. And they're actually live tracks this time around. So definitely if you're into this era of OZZY, 80s OZZY, I think you should definitely get this one. It's pretty interesting. Then Jake E. Lee is gotten rid of, and it's Zakk Wylde time. Here is the 1988's No Rest for the Wicked. Also, I think this is the album where Geezer Butler joins the band. Maybe not on the studio album, but on that tour. I think Geezer Butler joins OZZY's band, and that's kind of a cool thing for Black Sabbath fans anyway. I think this is a really cool album. Zack's more energetic style. I mean, there was nothing wrong with Randy Rhoads. There was absolutely nothing wrong with Jake E. Lee. I feel he's kind of underrated. But Zakk brings in this even more modern kind of Dimebag Darrell Pantera squealing guitar style. And he's full of energy on this one. The songwriting, however, isn't always quite that good, especially on the A side. I think Miracle Man is kind of a bit too easy somehow, and maybe even a bit too sleazy. It's got the sleaze factor on it. Crazy Babies is just retarded. But other than that, I guess Devil's Daughter is fine. I guess Breaking All the Rules is fine. And then we get to the B side, and there's Bloodbath in Paradise, which is really creepy with those Manson murders as the topic. Fire in the Sky is like a slow ballady song, but it's a really cool tune, great melody. Tattooed Dancer is a fast one, I really enjoy that one. Demon Alcohol is great. And that's pretty much where I used to think the album ended. Hero was like a bonus track to me, but here it is listed as an official part of this album, so maybe it was a different case with CDs than LPs and cassettes. I don't think Hero is necessary for this album, but it isn't terrible. The Liar is kind of a bonus track, extra stuff as well. Then there's also a live version of Miracle Man here. I feel it's kind of getting like lower and lower in the listing. I would say this is B tier. I would say it's good, but not great. So, yeah. Not a huge fan of the Zakk Wylde thing. Here's an interesting thing. Here's a CD single from that era, Crazy Babies. What's really cool about this one is there's this pretty rare track called You Said It All. You can find it on LP on some of the earlier OZZY stuff. I think it's from the era where Randy Rhoads was still around, so from the first or second album, and it was released on this EP. But it's kind of rare to find it on CD, so that's pretty cool to have it here. Uh, and then there's the final album. This is the one where Ozzy promised us that he would stop touring. No More Tears, this one is called. And now the No More Tours 2 thing was supposed to happen, but Ozzy is getting too sick and ill to actually do those dates, so that tour never happened. I think I had the tickets for some of those shows. But never mind, that's life. And he has had a really long career. And honestly, thinking of all the amounts of alcohol and drugs he consumed and all the weird shit he did, probably would have been a great idea for Ozzy to stop around here. It probably would have been the right thing to do. This album has lots of cool songs and great stuff, but it's just too long. Especially, well, it looks longer here because there are a couple of bonus tracks here at the end. This is the Japanese version. So you get Don't Blame Me and Party with the Animals. The original album actually has 11 tracks. But that's like 2 or 3 too many. The album starts well with Mr. Tinker Train and I Don't Want to Chase the World. Desire is a pretty cool song. The title track No More Tears is fine. I'm not a huge fan of Mama, I'm Coming Home. That kind of country ballad thing doesn't really do it for me. Sin, S-I-N, I think that's a pretty cool song. Road to Nowhere, I guess, is alright. I can't really remember whether I liked AVH. I really need to listen to that one more. I think it might have been an okay track. But I'm really not a huge fan of Hellraiser. So, yeah, the biggest hit singles here are the ones that kind of don't really do it for me personally. But it was a big deal, and Ozzy had this huge tour where he was basically saying goodbye to everyone. I think I also have that somewhere on DVD. Let me see. Yeah, Live and Loud. Yeah. So if we turn this thing around, that would be from this tour. So he definitely Ozzy released plenty of VHS and DVD stuff from his tour. He has the actual disc. I think it's like one of these weird two-sided things because it's so long. There's a pretty cool track list here. He plays some Sabbath stuff. I think there's some tracks where actually Black Sabbath is playing with Ozzy on a track or two. And then there are some others where he's playing with his solo band, Black Sabbath stuff. And I think there's at least one track from each of these 6 albums, if memory serves me correct. Shot in the Dark is here from Ultimate Sin. I think there should be... I think he plays Bark at the Moon somewhere here. Yeah, he does. So I think all of these albums are covered, which is, I think, the nice thing to do if you're quitting touring. Flying High Again is here as well. There's plenty of stuff from this newest one. And Miracle Man is here, yeah, and then there's of course lots of stuff from his first album. So yeah, it's absolutely solid stuff, and you know, it's cool to have all these different Ozzy eras represented, and you can get to see the live stuff. But quickly, once more, what's my favorite stuff? Studio-wise, the best OZZY album, Diary of a Madman, definitely check it out. It's a masterpiece. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. Blizzard of Oz. Everyone says this is the best OZZY album, and I can clearly see why. It isn't quite as heavy, it's a bit more rocking, and No Bone Movies is kind of a filler track. Had they replaced that one with You Looking at Me, Looking at You, then this would pretty much be just as good as Diary of a Madman. My third favorite, the somewhat underrated, I feel underrated, Ultimate Sin. Number 4, Bark at the Moon. Not quite as heavy, but still really enjoyable. And it has better production than Ultimate Sin. I'll give it that. Then here's No Rest for the Wicked. It's fine. Nothing wrong with it. A very typical 80s hair metal album, I guess you could call it. No More Tears. Bit too long. It does have lots of great stuff, but some of the hit singles would have been better just as singles, in my opinion. But hey, there you go. So that's OZZY covered. See you on the next one.